Matthias Sindelar. In the 1930s, Matthias Sindelar was the greatest footballer in Central Europe. Austria's captain, the Mozart of football. Then Germany annexed Austria in 1938. The Nazi regime expected Austrian players to join the German national team. Almost everyone complied. Sindelar refused. The Gestapo opened a file on him. They watched him closely. On January 23, 1939, Vienna police forced open a locked apartment and found Sindelar and his companion lying dead on the floor. Carbon monoxide. A faulty gas pipe was blamed. Official verdict: accidental death. But a close friend later revealed that local officials had been paid to record it as accidental, because under Nazi law, anyone who died by suicide or was killed could not receive an honorable funeral. What actually happened in that apartment has never been established. Sindelar was 35. And whatever killed him, the regime he refused to serve was somewhere in that room. Eusebio. January 5, 2014. Eusebio da Silva Ferreira woke up at his Lisbon home feeling faint. 733 career goals. Portugal's greatest ever player. The Black Panther. Within minutes he collapsed. Paramedics arrived quickly. They could not save him. Cardiac arrest. Pronounced dead at 71. Portugal stopped completely. 3 days of national mourning. His coffin carried around Estadio da Luz while tens of thousands stood in silence. 6 months later, his remains were moved to the National Pantheon, reserved for the most significant figures in Portuguese history. Not football history, Portuguese history. He died on his living room floor with no warning and no time for goodbyes. Andrés Escobar. This one is different from every other story today, because Andrés Escobar did not die of illness, did not die of old age. He died because of a deflection off his own foot. June 22, 1994. Colombia versus the United States at the World Cup. Escobar moved to block a cross. The ball deflected off his leg and into his own net. Colombia lost. They flew home early. 10 days later, Escobar walked to his car after leaving a restaurant in Medellin. A group of men were waiting. They confronted him about the own goal. Multiple shots were fired at close range. Andrés Escobar was 27 years old. 60,000 people attended his funeral. A man was killed because a football deflected off his foot. In a game, a 90-minute game, he deserved so much more than what he got. Ferenc Puskás. 4 goals in a single European Cup final. That is what Ferenc Puskás produced in 1960, when Real Madrid beat Eintracht Frankfurt 7-3, in what many still call the greatest club match ever played. 242 goals in 262 Real Madrid appearances. The engine of Hungary's golden team. One of the most gifted forwards the sport has ever seen. In 2000, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. His memory went first, then his recognition of people, then everything else. By September 2006, he had developed severe pneumonia, a common and often fatal complication in late-stage Alzheimer's patients. On November 17, 2006, Ferenc Puskás died in Budapest. He was 79. Hungary gave him a state funeral. FIFA named their annual award for the world's best goal after him. A permanent tribute to a man whose goals still feel impossible when you watch them today. Johan Cruyff. October 2015. Johan Cruyff was diagnosed with lung cancer. He had smoked for most of his adult life. The diagnosis was serious. Everyone understood what it meant. Dutch clubs held applause in the 14th minute of every match, his iconic number. Barcelona players wore orange shirts with his name. The football world held its breath. In February 2016, Cruyff told the media he was winning. That treatment was working, that he felt stronger. On March 2nd, he appeared publicly at a Formula One testing session near Barcelona visiting Max Verstappen. He looked thin, but he was there. It was the last time anyone outside his family saw him. On March 24, 2016, Johan Cruyff died in a Barcelona clinic, 68 years old. The cancer had reached his brain in his final weeks, taking his speech and mobility before it took everything. The man who invented total football, who built Ajax, who rebuilt Barcelona, who changed how the entire sport thinks. Gone at 68. Alfredo Di Stefano. July 5, 2014. Alfredo Di Stefano was taking a walk near the Bernabeu in Madrid, the only player to appear in all 5 of Real Madrid's consecutive European Cup finals between 1956 and 1960. A man who scored in every single one of them. He suffered a massive cardiac arrest and collapsed on the pavement outside the stadium. Passers-by called emergency services immediately. He was rushed to hospital. Doctors worked on him for 2 days. On July 7, 2014, Alfredo Di Stefano died. He was 88. The following day, his coffin was placed inside the Santiago Bernabeu. Thousands came. Tributes arrived from Ferguson, Pelé, Ronaldo, and Maradona. The man who built Real Madrid's identity as a European institution was carried out of the stadium he helped make legendary. George Best. By 22, George Best had won the European Cup and the Ballon d'Or. He was not just the best player in England, he was a cultural phenomenon. The fifth Beatle, the first footballer to exist at the intersection of sport and celebrity in the modern sense. But the fame arrived before anyone had the tools to manage what it was doing to him. No support structure, no protection. Just a 20-year-old from Belfast dropped into global superstardom with nothing to catch him. He turned to alcohol, and alcohol never let go. In 2002, a liver transplant bought him more time. But he kept drinking. Each relapse left less capacity to recover than the last. October 2005. Best was admitted to Cromwell Hospital in London with kidney failure and internal bleeding. His organs had been carrying decades of damage. On November 25, 2005, George Best died at 59. Multiple organ failure. Thousands lined the streets of Belfast for his funeral. The greatest footballer Northern Ireland ever produced, and the sport never found a way to protect him from what fame did to him before he was ready for it. Octavio Muzzino. This final story carries a weight the others do not. Not illness, not age, not the body failing after a full life. A man who went to dinner with friends and never came home. Octavio Muzzino was one of Mexico's most promising footballers in the early 1970s. On the night of May 30, 1974, he arrived at a restaurant in Guadalajara with a group of friends. Another man at the restaurant recognized him, approached the table. What began as conversation turned into provocation and insults over football rivalry. Staff removed him from the restaurant. 90 minutes later, as Muzzino's group left, a car was waiting outside. The same man was inside. Muzzino walked toward the car and extended his hand, an attempt at peace. The man produced a pistol and fired 3 shots at close range. Muzzino survived for 3 days. On June 3, 1974, he died from his injuries. He was 25 years old. The man responsible fled to Spain. When he eventually returned to Mexico, his lawyers argued diminished mental capacity. He was never tried, never convicted, never held accountable. Football builds legends out of these men, puts their names on stadiums, creates awards in their honor, plays their highlights on loop at tribute ceremonies. But every single one of them was a human being first. Some died peacefully, some with dignity after a long, full life, and some died in ways that remind you that no amount of greatness on a football pitch protects you from what waits for everyone off it. Remember the goals, remember the trophies, but remember the men too.